At my sister's baby shower, I was 9 months pregnant. My parents sat me and my husband next to a stinking trash bin. I confronted them saying, "I cannot stand the smell, please could we sit somewhere else?" My mother yelled saying, "First hand over all the baby essentials to your sister, her baby is more important, and also pay $7,000. When I refused, she pushed me hard. I fell straight in the pool. I was having difficulty coming back up. They all laughed saying, "If she doesn't come back up we can just get everything." Sister smirked, "Finally my baby gets everything." The violent impact broke my water and I went into labor, screaming in pain. But then my husband struck back. My mom's face turned pale with fear. The invitation arrived 3 weeks before the party. Cream-colored cardstock with gold lettering announced Madison's baby shower at my parents' house in Pasadena. My younger sister had sent it via certified mail, which should have been my first warning sign. Who sends a baby shower invitation that requires a signature for delivery? I showed it to my husband Derek over breakfast. He glanced up from his laptop, coffee mug paused halfway to his lips. "Your sister's really doing this? Having her shower at your parents' place?" "Apparently." I shifted uncomfortably in my chair, my swollen belly making every position feel wrong at 35 weeks pregnant. Our daughter had dropped lower in the past couple of weeks, and the pressure on my pelvis made walking feel like I was carrying a bowling ball between my legs. Derek's jaw tightened. "After everything they've pulled? The comments about us rushing into parenthood when we announced? Your mom literally telling you that Madison deserves a baby more because she's been married longer?" The memory stung. My mother had said those exact words 6 months ago at a family dinner, right after Madison announced her pregnancy. Never mind that Derek and I had been trying for 3 years before finally conceiving through IVF. Never mind the thousands of dollars we'd spent, the hormone injections that left me bruised and emotional, the disappointment month after month. Madison had gotten pregnant on her honeymoon. Naturally. Easily. And from that moment forward, she became the golden child all over again. "We don't have to go," Derek said gently. But I knew we did. Refusing would give my mother ammunition for years of guilt trips and accusations. She'd paint me as the jealous older sister who couldn't be happy for Madison. My father would call me selfish, immature, vindictive. So I RSVP'd yes. The day of the shower arrived hot and humid, typical Southern California weather in late August. I struggled into a maternity dress that had fit comfortably 2 weeks prior but now stretched tight across my belly. Derek helped me with my shoes since I couldn't see my feet anymore, let alone reach them. "We'll stay an hour," he promised as we pulled into my parents' circular driveway. 2 hours maximum. "Then I'm getting you out of there." The backyard had been transformed into a Pinterest-perfect wonderland. White and gold balloons formed an arch over the patio. Tables draped in ivory linens held elaborate floral centerpieces. A dessert bar featured a 3-tier cake decorated with fondant baby blocks and sugar flowers. Everything screamed expensive, orchestrated, perfect. My mother stood near the pool in a designer dress, greeting guests with air kisses and performative warmth. She spotted me and her smile flickered, just for a second. Then she recovered, walking over with her arms extended. "Claire. You made it." She hugged me stiffly, careful not to let our bodies actually touch. "My goodness, you're enormous. Are you sure you're not having twins?" Heat crept up my neck. "No, Mom. Just one baby. As you know." "Well, pregnancy certainly shows differently on everyone." Her eyes traveled down my body with barely concealed distaste. "Madison's only showing a tiny bit. Such a neat little bump. Very ladylike." Derek's hand found the small of my back, steadying me. "Claire looks beautiful. Pregnancy suits her." My mother's lips pursed. "Of course. Now, why don't you two find somewhere to sit? Ceremony starts in 20 minutes." She walked away before I could respond, leaving us standing awkwardly near the edge of the patio. I scanned the seating arrangements. Round tables for 6 dotted the yard, each with assigned seating cards in calligraphy. I found our names at a table tucked in the far corner, partially hidden behind an elaborate trellis covered in fake ivy. We approached, and the smell hit me immediately. 3 large trash bins sat directly behind our table, overflowing with food scraps and dirty plates from what must have been party prep. The August heat had turned them rancid, and flies buzzed around the lids. The stench of rotting fruit and sour milk made my stomach lurch. "No way." Derek's voice was flat with disbelief. "They did not put us next to the garbage." I stared at the place cards. Claire and Derek Walsh. This wasn't a mistake. My cousin Jennifer sat at the next table over, a good 15 feet away from the bins, chatting with other relatives. The main tables near the house held my parents' friends and Madison's bridesmaids. Everyone else had been placed in the shade with a view of the decorations. We got the trash corner. I walked carefully back across the yard, each step sending shooting pains through my hips. My mother stood by the dessert table, sampling a cupcake. "Mom, there's been a mix-up with our seats." She licked frosting from her finger. "What mix-up?" "Derek and I are seated next to the garbage bins. The smell is really strong, and with my pregnancy nausea." The tables were arranged very specifically, Claire. Madison spent hours on the seating chart. "I understand, but I cannot stand the smell. Please could we sit somewhere else?" My mother's expression hardened. "Absolutely not. Every seat is assigned. There are empty chairs at Aunt Linda's table. We could just. Those are for Madison's friends who might be running late." She crossed her arms. "You're being dramatic about a little smell. Everyone else is managing just fine. They're not sitting directly next to it." My voice cracked, frustration and hormones making my eyes burn with tears I refused to shed. "It's making me nauseous." "Then perhaps you should have thought of that before." "Before what?" My mother stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. "Before refusing to help your sister. Before being selfish with the baby things. You have everything already, Claire. The crib, the stroller, the car seat, all those expensive clothes. Madison needs those things. Her baby deserves them." The conversation had taken a turn I hadn't anticipated. "What are you talking about? Madison can buy her own baby supplies. Why should she when you already have them? You've always had everything handed to you. Your father paid for your college, your wedding. Now you have this fancy nursery while Madison's struggling." The revisionist history was breathtaking. Madison had a 6-figure job at a tech company. Her husband Nathan owned a successful real estate firm. They'd just bought a 4-bedroom house in Santa Monica. But somehow, in my mother's narrative, Madison was the struggling one who needed charity. My baby things were gifts from Derek's family and our friends. They're not mine to give away. Blood is thicker than water, Claire. Family helps family. My mother's eyes glittered with something ugly. Madison needs the nursery set. The one from Derek's parents. And the designer stroller. That fancy baby monitor system. All of it. Those were given to us for our daughter. First hand over all the baby essentials to your sister. Her baby is more important. The words hung in the air between us. Her baby is more important. Not equally important. Not both precious. More important. No. The word came out stronger than I felt. My mother's face flushed red. "What did you just say?" I said no. "Those things are for our baby. Madison can get her own. Also pay $7,000. I blinked. "Excuse me?" "Madison needs $7,000 for the nursery furniture she wants. Since you're being selfish about sharing, the least you can do is help financially. You and Derek have good jobs. You can afford it." The audacity stole my breath. "You want us to give Madison $7,000? On top of handing over everything we've prepared for our own baby? It's only fair. She's your sister." "Fair?" My voice rose. "How is any of this fair?" Guests were starting to notice. Heads turned our direction. My father materialized from inside the house, his expression already annoyed before he even knew what was happening. "What's going on?" His tone suggested I was the problem. "Your daughter is being difficult," my mother said. "Refusing to help her sister." "I'm not refusing to help. I'm refusing to give away my baby's things and $7,000 for no reason." My father's face hardened. "Family is never no reason, Claire. Your mother asked you to do something for Madison. The answer should be yes. The answer should be reasonable, Dad. What you're asking isn't reasonable. Lower your voice." His eyes darted to the watching guests. "You're making a scene at your sister's shower." "I'm making a scene? I was just asking to move our seats away from the garbage." "Enough." My mother's voice cracked like a whip. "You've always been jealous of Madison. Ever since she was born, you've resented her for being prettier, smarter, better at everything. And now you can't stand that she's having a baby too." The accusation was so absurd, so completely disconnected from reality, that I actually laughed. A short, sharp sound of disbelief. That's when my mother shoved me. Her hands hit my shoulders hard, with no warning. I was standing near the edge of the pool, my center of gravity already off from the pregnancy. I stumbled backward, arms windmilling, trying to catch my balance. I couldn't. The water closed over my head, shockingly cold despite the heat. For a moment, I was disoriented, unsure which way was up. My dress billowed around me, heavy fabric trapping me. I tried to kick toward the surface, but my pregnant body was unwieldy, awkward. My feet couldn't find the bottom. Panic clawed up my throat. I needed air. I couldn't reach it. Through the water, I heard laughter. Distorted, echoing, but unmistakable. They were laughing. I broke the surface gasping, trying to grab the pool edge. My hand slipped on the wet tile. I went under again. More laughter. My mother's voice, loud enough to carry, "If she doesn't come back up, we can just get everything." Other voices joined in. Agreement. Amusement. Madison's voice cut through, "Finally my baby gets everything." Terror gave me strength. I kicked hard, launching myself toward the surface again. This time I managed to hook my elbow over the pool's edge. I dragged myself halfway out, coughing and sputtering. Then pain exploded through my abdomen. Not the dull ache I'd been feeling for weeks. This was sharp, violent, consuming. I screamed, the sound ripping from my throat involuntarily. Warm fluid gushed between my legs, mixing with the pool water. My water had broken. Derek. I couldn't see him, couldn't see anything through the pain and panic. Derek, help. Strong hands grabbed me, hauling me out of the pool and onto the deck. Derek's face appeared above mine, white with terror. "The baby's coming," I gasped. "Derek, the baby's coming now." Another contraction hit. I'd attended childbirth classes, read all the books about early labor being manageable with breathing techniques. This wasn't early labor. This was immediate, urgent, overwhelming. "Call 911, Derek shouted at the stunned crowd. Nobody moved. My mother stood frozen, her face pale. Madison had both hands pressed to her mouth. My father looked between me and the guests with an expression of mortified horror, as if I'd deliberately gone into labor to ruin the party. Derek pulled out his phone, dialing with shaking hands while keeping one arm around me. "Ambulance. We need an ambulance right now. My wife's in labor, she fell in a pool, please hurry." The pain came in waves now, barely seconds between contractions. Something was wrong. Labor shouldn't progress this fast. The fall, the impact, something had triggered this violently premature delivery. "Stay with me, Claire." Derek's voice cracked. "Help is coming." I gripped his hand hard enough to hurt. Through the haze of pain, I saw my mother take a step backward. Not toward me. Away. Derek saw it too. His expression transformed into something I'd never seen before. Cold fury replaced the panic. "You pushed her." His voice was deadly quiet. "You pushed your pregnant daughter into a pool and laughed while she struggled." "It was an accident." My mother's words came out strangled. "I didn't mean, you said if she didn't come back up, you could take everything." "I heard you. Everyone heard you." The guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Aunt Linda had her phone out, and I realized with distant clarity that she'd been recording. The whole thing was on video. Derek stood slowly, carefully settling me against the deck. He walked toward my mother with deliberate steps. "Derek, let's not," my father moved to intercept him. "Don't." Derek's single word stopped him cold. "Don't say another word. You sat your pregnant daughter next to garbage bins at her sister's party. You demanded she give away her baby's things. You asked for $7,000. And when she said no, your wife assaulted her. Now that's a strong word," my father started. "Assault. Battery. Reckless endangerment. Attempted theft." Derek's voice grew louder with each word. "Oh, and we have witnesses. Dozens of them. Plus video evidence, thanks to Linda." My aunt nodded slowly, her face grim. "Got everything from the argument to the push. Clear as day." My mother's face drained of color. "You can't, we're family." "Family," Derek laughed, harsh and bitter. "You're right. Let's talk about family. Claire's family. The one she chose. Me. And our daughter who's being born right now because of what you did." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "Here's what's going to happen," Derek continued. "The paramedics are going to take Claire to the hospital. I'm going with her. And then I'm going to the police station to file a report. Assault and battery against a pregnant woman. I'm also calling our lawyer about a restraining order." "You wouldn't." But my mother's voice wavered. "Watch me. You'll never meet your granddaughter. Ever. You'll never be in her life, never know her name, never see a single photo. Both of you." He turned to include my father. "You're done." Another contraction tore through me. I couldn't hold back the scream this time. Derek was back at my side instantly, his anger transforming back into gentle concern. "I'm here. I've got you." The paramedics burst through the side gate, equipment in hand. They assessed me quickly, professional and efficient. One of them looked up sharply. "We need to transport now. This baby's not waiting." They loaded me onto a gurney. Through the pain and fear, I saw my mother's face. She looked small suddenly. Shrunken. Terrified. Good, I thought viciously. Let her be scared. Madison stepped forward. "Claire, I didn't know Mom was going to." "Don't." Derek's voice cut her off. "Don't you dare." You smirked and said her baby gets everything now. Stay away from us. The ambulance ride was a blur of pain and panic. We didn't make it to the hospital. Our daughter decided to arrive in the ambulance, 6 minutes from the emergency room, delivered by a paramedic named Angela who had the calmest hands I'd ever felt. She came out screaming, pink and furious and perfect. They placed her on my chest, and I sobbed with relief and joy and residual terror. 5 pounds, 8 ounces, Angela announced. Early but strong. Lungs are clearly working fine. Derek cut the umbilical cord with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. You did it. Oh my God, Claire, you did it. We named her Harper. Derek's grandmother's name. My family wouldn't get a say in it, wouldn't be consulted, wouldn't be informed until the birth certificate was filed. The emergency room doctor who examined us after we arrived had questions. Dr. Jennifer Ramirez was in her 50s with kind eyes that had clearly seen too much. She documented every detail while a nurse checked Harper's vitals in the warming bassinet beside us. You said you fell into a pool? Dr. Ramirez's pen hovered over her clipboard. I was pushed, I corrected quietly. My mother pushed me. The pen stopped moving entirely. Your mother pushed you. While you were 9 months pregnant? Yes. And you were having difficulty getting out of the water? I nodded, throat tight with the memory. I went under twice. I couldn't find the edge at first. The dress was heavy. Dr. Ramirez wrote everything down with careful precision. I'm required to document this for your medical records. The trauma from the fall likely triggered your rapid labor. Your baby's early delivery could have resulted in serious complications. You're both very lucky. Lucky felt like the wrong word for what we'd survived. She continued taking notes, asking about the timeline, the witnesses, whether I'd lost consciousness at any point. When she finished, she looked up with an expression that was part professional concern, part personal anger. I'm also a mandatory reporter in cases of abuse or endangerment. What happened to you today qualifies. I'll be filing a report with the appropriate authorities. We're already planning to go to the police, Derek said from his chair beside my bed. He hadn't let go of my hand since we'd arrived. Good. Because this isn't just family drama. This is a crime. She glanced at Harper, sleeping peacefully despite her dramatic entrance. Your daughter could have died today. You could have died. The people responsible need to be held accountable. After she left, Derek and I sat in silence for a long moment. The reality was settling in slowly, like sediment falling through water. My mother had pushed me. My family had laughed. Madison had hoped I wouldn't surface so she could claim my baby's belongings. I keep replaying it, I whispered. The look on her face right before she shoved me. She wanted to hurt me, Derek. My own mother wanted to hurt me. He squeezed my hand. I know. I saw it too. How long do you think she's hated me? I don't know that it's hate. I think it's something worse. Indifference mixed with entitlement. You're not a person to her. You're an obstacle to what Madison wants. The truth of it hurt worse than the physical injuries. I had bruises blooming across my shoulders, a scraped elbow from hitting the pool's edge, a persistent ache in my lower back. But those would heal. The knowledge that my mother cared so little about my life, about her grandchild's life, that she'd risked both for Madison's benefit, that would never fully heal. A social worker visited us the next morning. Ellen Pritchard introduced herself with a warm handshake and immediately commented on how beautiful Harper was. She had a way of making even difficult conversations feel manageable. Dr. Ramirez's report came through, Ellen explained, settling into the chair Derek had vacated so he could get coffee. I've been assigned to follow up and ensure you have the resources and support you need. We're pressing charges, I said immediately. This wasn't an accident. I'm glad to hear you're taking it seriously. Too often in cases involving family members, victims feel pressured to minimize or excuse the behavior. She pulled out a folder with information about domestic violence resources, legal aid, and counseling services. Even though this was your mother rather than a spouse or partner, the dynamics are similar. Abuse, manipulation, endangerment. We talked for almost an hour. Ellen helped me understand that what I'd experienced wasn't just a bad day or a family argument gone wrong. It was a pattern of behavior that had escalated to violence. She asked about my childhood, my relationship with my parents, whether there had been other incidents. I found myself telling her things I'd never articulated before. How Madison's accomplishments were always celebrated while mine were downplayed. How my mother had forgotten to come to my college graduation because Madison had a tennis tournament the same day. How my father had refused to walk me down the aisle at my wedding because I hadn't chosen the venue my mother wanted. These are all forms of emotional abuse, Ellen said gently. Favoritism, neglect, conditional love. And yesterday, it became physical. That's an escalation that rarely de-escalates on its own. So cutting them off is the right choice? I can't tell you what's right for your family. But I can tell you that protecting yourself and your daughter is always valid. You don't owe anyone access to your life, especially people who've proven they'll harm you to benefit someone else. Derek returned with coffee and pastries from the hospital cafeteria. Ellen went over the same information with him, emphasizing the importance of documenting everything. Photos of my bruises. Copies of medical records. The video Aunt Linda had taken. Witness statements from the party guests. Build an ironclad case, she advised. Because people like your parents will try to flip the narrative. They'll claim you're overreacting, being vindictive, keeping their grandchild from them maliciously. Don't give them any room to twist the story. After Ellen left, Derek and I made a list. All the evidence we had, all the people who'd witnessed the assault, all the prior incidents we could document. It was depressingly long. I should have seen this coming, I said, staring at the list. All the signs were there. Don't do that. Derek's voice was firm. Don't blame yourself for their choices. You hoped your family would be better. That's not a character flaw. Harper woke up hungry, and I focused on feeding her, on the simple miracle of her existence. She latched easily, another thing to be grateful for. The nurses had warned that premature babies sometimes struggled with nursing, but Harper was determined. My phone had been recovered from the pool, waterlogged and dead. Derek brought me his laptop so I could check emails and messages. 63 missed calls. Over 100 texts. Social media notifications in the hundreds. The video had leaked. Aunt Linda had shared it with her daughters for safekeeping, and one of them had posted it to Facebook before taking it down. But the internet never forgets. It had been shared, downloaded, re-uploaded. Within 24 hours of the incident, thousands of people had seen my mother push me into that pool. The messages ranged from supportive to horrified to outright enraged. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years reached out to express their shock. Derek's coworkers sent well wishes and offers to help. Complete strangers commented on news articles that had picked up the story. Local woman assaulted at sister's baby shower, gives birth in ambulance, read one headline. Another went with viral video shows grandmother pushing pregnant daughter into pool. A particularly sensational blog posted baby shower turns into attempted murder scene. My mother's friends were trying damage control in the comments. It was an accident. She barely touched her. Claire's exaggerating for attention. Madison's shower was ruined by her sister's dramatics. But the video didn't lie. It showed my mother's hands making contact with my shoulders. It showed me falling backward into the pool. It captured the laughter, the comments about taking my belongings, Madison's smirk. Public opinion was overwhelmingly on my side, which felt surreal and validating and somehow still not enough. Derek's mother called while I was processing the online response. Patricia Walsh was everything my mother wasn't: warm, supportive, genuinely excited about being a grandmother. She'd raised 3 sons as a single mother after divorcing their father, worked 2 jobs to put them through college, and never once made them compete for her love. "How's my granddaughter?" were her first words. "Perfect," I said, voice cracking. "She's absolutely perfect." "And how are you, sweetheart?" I broke down. Told her everything about the shower, the garbage bins, the demands for money and baby supplies, the push, the terror of going under, the pain of labor in a pool where my family laughed instead of helped. Patricia listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "I'm flying out," she said finally. "Tonight if I can get a flight. You need help, and you need family who actually acts like family." "You don't have to, Claire. You're my daughter-in-law. Harper is my granddaughter. Of course I'm coming. I should have been there already." She arrived the next day with Derek's sister, Melissa, in tow. They brought groceries, baby supplies, homemade meals in containers that fit our freezer. They didn't ask invasive questions or make judgmental comments. They just helped. Melissa held Harper while I showered for the first time in 3 days. Patricia organized our apartment, setting up the bassinet beside our bed, sorting through the gifts that had started arriving from friends. Derek's brother called from Seattle to offer financial help if we needed it for legal fees. This was what family was supposed to look like. People who showed up. People who helped without expecting anything in return. People who celebrated your joy and protected you from harm. The police detective assigned to our case was a woman named Sarah Chen. She came to the hospital on our second day there, badge clipped to her belt, notebook in hand. She'd already reviewed Dr. Ramirez's report and watched the viral video multiple times. "I want to be upfront with you," Detective Chen said after introducing herself. "Cases involving family members can be complicated to prosecute. Defense attorneys will argue it was an accident, that there was no intent to harm, that emotions were running high. But this video is pretty damning." She walked us through what would happen next. My parents would be contacted for statements. Witnesses from the party would be interviewed. The district attorney would review the evidence and decide whether to file charges. What we have in your favor is documentation. The video, medical records, multiple witnesses. What works against us is that your mother will claim it was unintentional. A gesture gone wrong. An unfortunate accident. She said if I didn't come back up, they could take everything, I reminded her. That's on the video. How is that unintentional? It shows callousness and disregard for your safety. But proving she pushed you with intent to cause serious harm is different from proving she made a terrible comment after the fact. The legal nuances were frustrating. To me, the intent was obvious. My mother had been angry that I refused to give Madison my baby's things. She'd retaliated physically. The fact that she'd added cruel commentary while I struggled in the water only proved her mindset. But Detective Chen explained that what seemed obvious to us might not meet the legal standard for certain charges. Assault and battery, yes. Those were clear. But attempted murder or even reckless endangerment causing serious injury, those required proving a specific mental state that would be harder to establish. "We'll make the strongest case we can," she promised. "And between you and me? I've seen the video. I have a daughter. If someone did that to her while she was pregnant, I'd want them in prison. I'll do everything in my power to make sure your mother faces consequences." After Detective Chen left, I felt drained. Harper needed to be fed and changed. The nurses needed to check my vitals and Harper's weight. Visitors kept coming, some welcome, some less so. A local news crew tried to get into the maternity ward until security removed them. Derek ran interference on everything, his protective instincts in overdrive. He screened calls, turned away unwanted visitors, and brought me food when I forgot to eat. Patricia handled the practical things, laundry, grocery shopping, thank you notes for gifts. Melissa researched pediatricians and scheduled Harper's first appointments. I focused on healing and bonding with my daughter. Everything else felt secondary to that. On our third day in the hospital, my father showed up. Security called Derek before letting him anywhere near my room. Derek went down to meet him in the lobby, and I heard about the conversation later. "I want to see my daughter and granddaughter," my father had demanded. "No. I'm family. You can't keep me away. Watch me." Derek's voice had been cold. "You sat your pregnant daughter next to garbage. You supported your wife's demand for baby supplies and money. You did nothing when Claire asked to move seats. And when your wife pushed her into a pool, you looked embarrassed for yourself, not concerned for her. Now see here. No, you see here. Claire almost drowned. Harper was born 5 weeks early because of the trauma. They both could have died. And you're worried about your access to them? Your rights as a grandfather? You have none. You lost them when you chose Madison over Claire for the millionth time." My father had tried to argue, bringing up holidays and childhood memories, claiming he'd always loved me. Derek shut him down with facts. The graduation he'd missed. The wedding walk he'd refused. The college fund that had gone entirely to Madison despite promises to split it. The countless times he'd sided with my mother and sister against me. "Blood doesn't make you family," Derek had said. "Actions do. And your actions have been consistently terrible." Security had escorted my father out when he'd raised his voice. Derek came back upstairs shaking with adrenaline and anger. "I'm sorry," I said. "You shouldn't have to deal with him. That's what marriage means. Your battles are my battles." He kissed my forehead. And honestly, I've wanted to say those things to him for years. It felt good. The hospital finally discharged us on the 4th day. Harper had maintained her weight, passed all her tests, and was cleared to go home. I was healing well physically, though emotionally I felt raw and fragile. Derek's mother insisted on staying with us for 2 weeks. We didn't argue. Having her there meant I could rest while she handled household tasks. It meant Harper had another set of loving hands to hold her. It meant I had someone to talk to who understood family dysfunction and had survived it herself. My ex-husband's mother was like yours, Patricia told me one evening while we folded baby clothes. Everything I did was wrong. Every choice I made was criticized. She compared me to her daughter constantly, and I always came up short. How did you deal with it? Divorce helped, she said with a wry smile. But even before that, I had to learn that her opinion didn't define my worth. She could think I was a terrible wife and mother all she wanted. I knew the truth. So did my sons. That's what mattered. Do you ever regret cutting her off? Not once. She tried to get custody of my boys during the divorce. Claimed I was unfit. Spread lies about me to anyone who'd listen. Patricia smoothed out a tiny onesie with gentle hands. People like that don't change, Claire. They doubled down. Cutting her off was the healthiest thing I ever did. Her words helped more than any therapist's advice could have. She'd lived through something similar and come out stronger. She'd raised good men who knew how to love and support their partners. She'd built a life based on chosen family rather than biological obligation. If she could do it, so could I. The hospital kept us for 4 days of observation. Harper's early arrival meant monitoring, but she thrived. Strong and healthy despite the traumatic entrance into the world. Derek made good on every promise. The police report was filed. Video evidence was submitted. Our lawyer drafted a cease and desist letter and initiated a restraining order. My parents called 47 times in the first week. Derek blocked their numbers. They showed up at the hospital. Security escorted them out. My mother sent flowers. Derek had them donated to other patients. The legal consequences came swiftly. The video made everything undeniable. The district attorney filed criminal charges against my mother for assault and battery. My father wasn't charged criminally, but we filed a separate civil lawsuit against both of them for emotional distress, medical expenses, and endangerment. Madison wasn't charged, but she was included in the restraining order after she tried to visit our house uninvited. Their criminal defense lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, suggesting the assault was unintentional and that my mother had no history of violence. The prosecutor wasn't buying it, not with video evidence showing the deliberate push and the callous comments afterward. My mother eventually accepted a plea bargain, reduced charges in exchange for a guilty plea, probation, mandatory anger management classes, and a permanent restraining order. No jail time, which frustrated me, but at least there was a criminal record. A legal acknowledgement that what she'd done was wrong. The civil case took longer. Their lawyer attempted to argue we were being vindictive and oversensitive. Our lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen who specialized in family law, responded with a detailed accounting of emotional abuse, financial manipulation attempts, and physical assault documented by medical records, witness statements, and that damning video. The civil settlement negotiations dragged on for 4 months. My parents wanted it to go away quietly. Derek wanted consequences. We got both. They paid for all medical expenses related to Harper's birth. They paid for trauma counseling. They established a trust fund for Harper that they couldn't touch or control. And they signed away any grandparental rights, legally documented and binding. The money didn't matter as much as the principle. They had to acknowledge in legal documents what they'd done. They had to admit fault. They had to accept permanent separation from their granddaughter. My mother tried one last time to reach out through Aunt Linda. A letter, handwritten, claiming she'd made a mistake. Claiming she loved me. Claiming she wanted to meet Harper. I read it once and threw it away. Derek found me crying in Harper's nursery that evening, holding our sleeping daughter. Second thoughts? He asked gently. No. I wiped my eyes. Just grieving, I think. Grieving the parents I thought I had. The family I thought I belonged to. He wrapped his arms around both of us. You have a family? Right here. He was right. Harper had Derek's parents, who had flown in the day after her birth and hadn't left until they'd made sure we were settled. She had Derek's sister, who brought meals and baby supplies and asked what we needed instead of what she wanted. She had friends of ours who became chosen family, surrounding us with support and love. She didn't need people who would seat us next to garbage bins. Who would prioritize one grandchild over another? Who would endanger a life to prove a point about favoritism? Madison's baby was born 4 months later. A boy named Christopher. I learned this from Facebook before blocking all my family members. Someone had tagged me in Madison's birth announcement, perhaps out of habit or perhaps as a deliberate attempt to force contact. I felt nothing looking at the photo. No jealousy, no anger, no curiosity. Just a distant wish that this child would be treated better than I had been. Harper's first birthday came with a celebration in our backyard. Derek's family, Our friends, co-workers who'd become close. 30 people who loved our daughter surrounded us. My parents weren't invited. Neither was Madison. The restraining order was still in effect, though they hadn't violated it. Perhaps they'd finally learned boundaries. Or perhaps they simply didn't care enough to try harder. Harper smashed her cake with gleeful enthusiasm, getting frosting in her hair and all over her face. Everyone laughed and took pictures. Derek kissed me and whispered, "Best party ever. No garbage bins in sight." I laughed until I cried, and he held me through both. Years later, people would ask if I regretted cutting off my family. If I felt guilty. If I thought I'd overreacted. I'd think about that moment in the pool, struggling to surface, hearing laughter instead of concern. I'd think about Madison's smirk as she talked about taking everything. I'd think about my mother's face, pale with fear when she realized actions had consequences. And I'd think about Harper, growing up surrounded by people who loved her unconditionally. Who would never make her compete for affection? Who would never seat her next to garbage to prove a point? No regrets, I'd say. Not even one. Derek proposed we move across the country when Harper turned 3. A job opportunity in North Carolina, far from California and all its complicated history. Fresh start, he said. New place where nobody knows the story. Where Harper can just be Harper. We moved in the spring. Bought a house with a real backyard, not the tiny patio we'd had in our apartment. Harper started preschool and made friends who knew nothing about family drama or baby shower disasters. Sometimes I'd see her playing with a neighbor's daughter, sharing toys without prompting, and I'd feel a fierce gratitude that she was learning kindness naturally. Not because someone demanded it. Not to avoid punishment or win approval. Just because that's who she was. On Harper's 5th birthday, an envelope arrived from California. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting. I didn't open it. Derek asked if I wanted to, if I needed closure. I have closure, I told him. I closed that door years ago. The envelope went in the trash. Where it belonged. Where they tried to put us. But we'd survived, built something better, created the family we deserved. Harper would never know what it felt like to be the unwanted one. To be literally seated next to garbage while others got the good seats. She'd only know love. Unconditional, uncomplicated, real. And that was the best revenge of all.